Now we are joined by Yamani Hernandez, a storyteller, activist, and the executive director of the National Network of Abortion Funds. Welcome, Yamani. Will you start by sharing your story?
Sure. So I had an abortion when I was 19. I was in college. It was between my freshman and sophomore year. I got pregnant the first time that I had sex. And I can't say that it was exactly an accident, but it was a time where I was in love, and I was really enamored by the idea of having children, and also kind of right the wrongs of my childhood, and wanting to be the kind of mom that I had always wanted to be. And I quickly found out when I was pregnant and starting to tell people that I was pregnant and trying to figure out what the next steps were, that a lot of people were not supportive of my pregnancy. My parents were basically like, you cannot come back here if you're going to take this pregnancy to term. My partner at that time, who I ended up later marrying and having 2 kids with, but my partner at that time was not ready to be a parent and didn't think that their family would support. So basically, I didn't feel like I was going to have the supports that I needed to be the parent that I really wanted to be, so I had an abortion.
Thank you so much for sharing your story. How do you find that your work working with the National Abortion Fund helps you with your story? Like, as far as how you think your story helps?
Yeah, well, I got into this work. I don't have a background in any of this. I actually got into this work from working with young people in art and design projects. And I was working with a young person once, 12 years ago now, who needed an abortion and was willing to go through some really desperate measures to have one. And at that time, it was a revelation to me to realize that just because you can't afford an abortion or because of stigma, that sometimes people will go through desperate measures in order to avoid getting regular health care. And so I got really active in sexual health rights and identity work with youth, and that kind of led me into realizing that young people are often marginalized in the abortion conversation. And particularly with the laws around parental notice of abortion and parental involvement laws, they're usually considered unwinnable issues, and a lot of times adults are really the focus in our movement. So when I came to the National Network of Abortion Funds, one thing that really attracted me to it was realizing that young people were included in the mission of thinking about abortion access.
Now I'm gonna pick up my cards. Okay, my second question is, what is the difference between choice and access?
Sure. So the difference between choice and access is really significant, especially for abortion funds that deal with this every day. And so choice is the notion that you can just choose whether or not you want to bring a pregnancy to term or not. But just because you choose to, you might not be able to get equal access to an abortion. So while abortion is legal for everybody, it's not accessible for everybody at the same level because we are paid differently. We live in different neighborhoods with different access, depending on our income, zip codes, race, gender, all of those things. We can have our age. We can have barriers to actually getting access to our legal rights, which is an injustice.
Exactly. Why is the case of Jane Doe so important for those fighting for abortion access?
I think the case of Jane Doe is really important because it is a crystal clear example of inequity and the idea that everybody does not have the equal rights to their human rights, and that some people are actually punished differently and punished, period, for being able to self-determine and choose the path that's right for them. And so it's really an injustice. It's really cruel, and it's something that I think will hopefully bring people that have been inactive on this issue a lot more active.
Great. What is the bowl-a-thon? Now that sounds fun. I've done it before. It is fun. But what's the bowl-a-thon?
The bowl-a-thon is a national activity that happens all across the country, led by abortion funds, but really our whole movement participates. And it's a huge fundraiser and also organizing moment to help people pay for abortions. And so people actually create teams, and they do it online and off, like in person, have events, and they are bowling for abortion access. So last year, abortion funds raised almost $2 million to pay for abortions that people would otherwise not be able to pay for.
2 million?
Yeah.
Wow.
So when Dr. Horvath was talking about young people having to call abortion funds, that money is typically from, at least from the National Network of Abortion Funds, that money is all raised from grassroots fundraising at the local level. So we have abortion funds in over 40 states, and there's over 70 of them. And so thousands of volunteers and activists that are all coming together to raise this money so that we can really be a safety net for people who otherwise wouldn't have it.
Wow. Talk about activism. Yamani, thanks for everything you are doing for our movement.